You're watching the Directing Animation Livecast, hosted by me, Scott Weiser. I've worked as either a director or animator on 30 projects, both short and feature length, and my favorite projects have been these books, which I wrote, illustrated, and pitched at several studios as feature films. Today we have a wonderful guest with us. It's Robert Kondo. Robert worked on Ratatouille and Coco at Pixar as a visual development artist. Then he left Pixar to co-direct with his friend Dice Tsutumi the film The Dam Keeper. The Dam Keeper was nominated for an Oscar. It looked like you were going to develop it into a feature film, which ended up as these 3 books that are absolutely beautiful. Fully painted graphic novels. They're just, they're, what was the review on it? It was like, I can't remember. It was like magic with light or something like that. alchemy of light. Oh, yeah. And now you've transitioned to becoming a producer, which is pretty awesome. And your show Oni, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Was just picked up by Netflix, which is awesome. I'm so excited to see that. Awesome. And go ahead and say hi.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me. And it's been an honor. You and I have run into each other over the last few years at CTN, and we always touch base there, and we're always really excited to see what you're up to.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's talk about that transition from director to producer and how that's been. How is it different? How is it similar to being a director? And you could even throw in how it's different than being an art director at Pixar or whatnot. So. Yeah,
absolutely. I spent about 12 years at Pixar as an art director.
Wow.
And Dice Tsutumi was another art director there. He and I worked on several projects together, including Toy Story 3, Monsters University, amongst some other things, Coco. And we had made this short film, The Dam Keeper, together. Both we wrote it, directed it together, along with an incredible team of producers, writers, producers and editors and animators. And so it was a really incredible experience that truly we did to just get a broader perspective on animation. You've worked in the industry, that.
Yeah. Now, Robert froze for just a second. That doesn't mean he's not going to come back. This happened one time during our 15 minutes before we got on here, so.
We really felt like, sorry, did it break up there?
It did. So you're just talking about how it was a wonderful experience. And then we lost you.
It was a great experience, but I think we really did in terms of trying to get a greater perspective on the overall filmmaking process, including producing, including promotion, some of the things that normally as a creative artist you don't get to see.
Well, you probably had to kind of bridge the line between producer, director for both of you, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we had 2 producers on that show.
Oh, you did? Okay.
That were incredible. And I would not say they produced it. And but we got to see firsthand a lot of what that meant and what it looked like. And so we decided, based on that experience, to continue on that path of growth that had become, in truth, addictive. And
yes, I understand that.
And we just felt like we wanted to go out and strike out on our own. Pixar's an amazing place that Ed Catmull and Steve Jobs and John Lasseter built, amongst many other people. And it felt like we wanted to go and start our own place, strike out our own, and take sort of a level of accountability for what we were putting out into the world. Yeah. So we started Tonko House, a studio, and we directed several projects together. But more recently, I've stepped into sort of a CEO role at Tonko House, and Dice is continuing to direct his latest project. As you talked about in the introduction, Oni is collaborating with Netflix, and but for me, this role of producer is such an ambiguous term throughout Hollywood. And
I know.
so many different ways. It covers a wide swath of responsibility. And, largely for me, the way that I collaborate with Dice I would say that it's just evolved. It's not that we don't continue to collaborate on a creative level. We actually do. And on a show like Oni, my role is executive producer, and I don't know what all that means in the end. I think that the way that I work is that I work very closely with the producer of Oni to take a look at the overall project and how things are moving forward. And again, it's not like I'm not doing a whole lot of the lifting day to day. We have a producer on that's doing that.
Well, that's because you have multiple projects, right? That you're executive producing. Yeah.
Right. We have multiple projects, and so. Largely what I do is I just continue to work with Dice. It's like when he's sort of, the difference is I think that he's directing and show running, and so he makes the calls in the end. Yeah. Which is great for me because when he gets me into the project, it really is to take a look at what he's doing, give him my take, and sort of give him ideas or collaborate with him on that level to which is helpful. But at the end of the day, it's sort of all his to decide what's really useful and not. And he's not just doing that with me, but with multiple different people. So, as a producer, it's been a bit of a shift, but I think overall, I really do feel like it's sort of an evolution. I'm working with, several of our artists here in that capacity, and overseeing some of our, we do a lot of work from books to exhibitions. We're doing some web series stuff. We're doing several series of the kind of development scope as Oni, and we are continually working on the Dam Keeper feature. So we have quite a bit going on in-house on top of, we ran a film festival last year in Japan for the first time, and our first exhibition in Korea. So there's all these different things that are going on that, I really love kind of being a part of all of that. And so there's a little bit of a shift in terms of level of creative accountability, I would say. On the day-to-day, my ability to really be in there. But our creatives here are so collaborative that I don't feel like I'm missing out. Because I continue to write on my own. Yeah. And still do things on my own, absolutely.
Very nice.
But right now, it's not my responsibility right now to be helming an entire project creatively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever read the book Two Guys Named Joe about Joe Rampt and Joe Grant. Right. Uh-huh. Yeah, that came to mind as I was listening to you. It seems kind of like you're playing kind of a Joe Grant type of role where you can give creative ideas in several different locations, but at the same time, you're taking a different type of role. I read that book and I thought his job was my dream job. Just to walk around and put little bits in, and help projects and make them better. Yeah. Now that I've worked more, I've actually realized that I'd like to pull back a little bit more, and actually I would like to helm at least a couple projects myself. So, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And, I think my creative project is the company.
Oh, yeah. And it is a creative project, I'm sure.
It's sort of like, the vision of the company, and we all contribute. We have several partners that are incredible, and we all sort of contribute, but my responsibility is sort of the vision moving through on the day-to-day, throughout our projects, throughout our people, and the culture of the company. So it's a bit different, and again, it's not 100% that, for instance, a lot of people ask about Dice and my relationship and how it's evolved. Anything I do overall involves Dice. Anything Dice does on some level involves me. Yeah. And so we've just sort of evolved and grown in a way, is the way I see it, as far as the maturity of our collaboration and clarity as to what's best on moving forward. Because a lot of, I think, the evolution from directing to producing, collaborating on a company level is more of an evolution of relationships than it is sort of, the titles don't carry the complete weight of the shift, I would say.
Yeah, and that makes sense. At the same time, it does have a similarity. Our last interview was with Brenda Gilbert, who's a producer, and everything she talked about was relationships, having empathy with your employees, figuring out how to make different creative dynamics work. And it seems like that is what you do.
Yeah, that's definitely a big.
You're figuring out the team dynamic and and how to make sure Dice has everything he needs to succeed as a director, and your other directors as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. And I wanted to say also that I was really glad that you did step away from Pixar. I know you loved it and it was great. At the same time, the films that you make have such a unique feeling to them. And it's something that I think could have only happened through Tonko House.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
You'd like to think so, yeah.
I would say that Pixar was an important part of education, and that everything I love about Tonko House, on some level, we took a page out of what we learned at Pixar, or previously Dice was at Blue Sky and Lucas, and it's kind of that collective experience that really helped us understand what to appreciate about what a company can provide, and what to appreciate about what to chase in creative. We have this process that I'm sure we mentioned before in your presence, Scott, is this sort of Tonko House therapy. The idea of Dice and I, when we sit down to create something together, it really does start with sort of this therapeutic moment of talking about the things we're vulnerable about. Really discussing the things that we face as, at this point in our lives, questions that are unanswered. And out of those conversations come the projects like Oni that evolve into fantastic worlds and characters, and but at its core is sort of a human story that very much we relate to. And that, I would say, is a direct page out of our favorite films that we saw being made at Pixar while we were there.
I really like that, yeah.
Yeah, so Pixar is still like an incredible part of our existence. I think that we're not very far. Our studios
Sounds like their studio's pretty close. He'll be back. Just a second. While we wait for him, maybe we'll flip through his books. You can see the beautiful art in these. It truly is like an alchemy of light. Just how this is a very low-key painting, and yet you can see so much detail. You can feel what it feels like to be there at night. And from my understanding, it seems like the art directed these books. So the concepts are theirs, the designs are theirs, but they had other people helping with the projects. So yeah. Oh, this is sad. He hasn't popped back yet. He will though. He will though. All right. Well, let's try to get him back. Oh, he's not online. He said that in a former interview like this, there was a time where somebody actually reset the internet, and so he actually went off to make sure that wouldn't happen. But maybe it did. Oh, he's calling me. Hey, Robert.
Hey, sorry.
It's okay. I actually flipped through your book while you were offline. So, awesome. So, yeah, and kind of what you were along the lines of what you were talking about was it's really interesting, and I'm sure it's difficult because you loved Pixar so much to talk about how things are different now, and who knows if they're necessarily better or if they're necessarily. There's never an indication that they were worse at Pixar or anything like that, and so, of course not. It seems like a wonderful environment.
It's just different, I think for where we are in our lives and what Dice and I are aspiring to do amongst our team here, we really do have a team of sort of risk takers, people who are taking a risk by joining us and seeking out sort of a personal journey and in alignment with where Tonko House is and what we're trying to do. But I think that overall Pixar really does. They have incredible resources.
Oh yeah.
Everybody, every crevice of that place is filled with talent. And talent on a world scale, and all of that is incredible and amazing. But I think at the end of the day, that also, for me in particular, I think there's a certain comfort level there that sometimes in a situation like that, when you're surrounded with such incredible people and smart people and incredible resources and budgets that really are very healthy in comparison to the independent world.
Yep.
It can create a space where you no longer have a level of accountability for either the success of something or the failure of something. And I think in many ways, the deep dive that we took was a big jump into this level of accountability, but not just the accountability for the creative that we make, but actually the message that we're putting out there, how we're conducting ourselves, how we run a company, and who we are as people. And that came to the forefront so quick, so much faster than I think many people imagine. Pixar has built an incredible platform for artists to collaborate, and it's still one of my favorite places, and someplace that a place that I think about often. And it does feel like that we're always cheering for them and looking for them to lead the big studios in a way towards risk-taking and sincerity. And I think that they continue to do that, which is exciting to me and great to have as a neighbor and an ally and friend to the studio.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you and I both know that when you're on your own like this and you're more independent, those risks have a lot more, you feel a lot more of the growing pains.
I would say that overall it's impossible to, the hardest things to face are the things that you can't see, actually. So
yes,
I feel like the exercise becomes different, whereas I think what's great about working at a place like Pixar is that there are things like that, but the scale of it and the impact of it is so much bigger. Like, simple things like when we started the company, I mean, even now, our internet speed, Pixar is one of the fastest internet speeds in the Bay Area, but our internet took several customer calls to our provider, and Dice and I doing all of that, and it's just the accountability there again is different. It's what we asked for, but it's not how we imagined we'd be spending so much time.
I know, I agree.
But
that's awesome.
It's not like it's all part of it. It's all so humbling, and if anything, it made me appreciate all of the incredible things that big studios have. Yeah. Because it's not cheap or easy either.
No, it's not cheap or easy for them. In fact, it ends up costing them a lot more, it seems, to be able to keep the machine running.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a different topic, but it's actually a good segue. At CTNX last year was your panel was so inspiring to me. And one of the reasons is because I was spending so much time in client work and trying to balance client work with the original content. And then I get into your panel, and you talked about how you were taking all the client work, as much as you love it, and you were putting it away, and or giving it away, I guess, and you were then going to push forward just original work this year. And I would love to hear about how that was possible. It's something I would like to do as a next step. As much as I love my clients, I mean, they are so awesome, and I learned so much working with them. At the same time, there's all these stories that I need to tell. And
Yeah, absolutely. Overall, our studio is really only possible from a greater community that exists beyond our walls. The support that we've had from the get-go, from when we left, and the story, I think, of leaving Pixar has resonated with a lot of artists. And I also think that that community has been incredible in supporting us, and I think that many of the clients that we worked with oftentimes see us in that way, and the collaboration is really to support not just ourselves but other small studios like ourselves. And last year was really an incredible year where we took on an incredible amount of service work, the most that we've ever taken on. And it was just that time in the history of the studio in which we started to see a certain path that was about survival. And that part of it is a real struggle. And I always feel like you really know who your friends are and the quality of people. It's like when you're at the bar and everyone's, drinks are free and everyone's having a great time, everyone's friends. But when you get into the back alley and something questionable goes down, someone gets mugged, you see real quick who kind of stands by you and who sort of runs off. You really start to see some of those qualities. And I think that in the same way for us, not so much about friendship, but just in terms of forging our internal relationships, our relationship with our external partners, we had hit a point where we were really trying to figure out our own identity. Who are we? Why did we do this? And it's weird because I think we started the company really focused on, well, why are we doing this? There's two of us. Why are we even stepping on our own when we have incredible jobs and can live a very healthy lifestyle? And why kind of take the risk? And back then we were so idealistic. We were like, well, because we have a story to tell, we want to do all these things. And then, at that point last year, we were about 4 years old, and it was just that point of we've taken on a group of people, we have levels of responsibility we always wanted but didn't quite understand. And so we took all this service work, and a lot of it was great work, and we learned a lot from it. But at the same time, too, it was sort of at the sacrifice of continuing to tell our own stories. So in a way, what we did is we did stop quite a bit of service work, but we still are actually doing service work with kind of meaningful service work with some of our one of our I call them our sister studios, but Kondo studios.
Nice.
Incredible friends of ours, and they're incredible artists and writers and creators that we really believe in. And so we collaborated in working on one of their projects as an art department. But beyond that, we have been focused on development. And the way that we've been able to do that is actually by finding partners who we really align with, who have invested into the company and kind of created a bit of stability for us so that we could focus on that. It's not like we took a big risk in terms of this year developing quite a bit, and we've been very fortunate that those projects have been getting great positive attention and forward momentum, much like Oni. And but it has been through outside investment that has really helped us. But the important thing, from the start of Tonko House, we had quite a few, not quite a few, but there were people interested in investing in Tonko House, and we held off for a long time because, while of course the financials and cash flow of a company is its lifeblood and important, it wasn't the end-all be-all for us. And we didn't start Tonko House as sort of a profitable money-making adventure. That wasn't the currency we were looking to deal in. So finding an investment partner who really understands that is an important thing. And so we found incredible partners in a company called Mistletoe, who largely invests in technical companies, but who have an overall sort of social consciousness and consciousness towards building and helping humanity. And they just have always been close to us and advised in really tough times. And this just felt like a very natural relationship in that it wasn't just sort of the investment we were interested in. It was actually the collaboration and their advisement, and it's their vision of Tonko House that actually set the bar higher for us and allows us to be bigger, not just through the money, but actually in their vision for us. So,
I love that.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate. I can't say that, I don't think that, I wish I could say that was all the work that we had put in, but in truth, the relationship was built through two of our partners, Daisuke Miyake and Dice Tsutumi, and those two guys have an incredible network, and we just connected with the right people at the right time. And it's funny how much of the adventure of Tonko House has been sort of that good fortune, kind of at the right time. You might say it's lucky, but it's also sort of, we've been always trying to be conscious of the opportunity that we're looking for to be able to grow the company. And we've just been so, again, that's where the community and the support has been so critical to our survival and success.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being vulnerable, especially when it came to you talking about, who your friends are. I really felt that one. and because I've experienced it as well. And I also, your answer is actually not what I was expecting to hear, or not the kind of answer that I was hoping to hear, but it is actually really encouraging, because I have similar things that have been developing over time as I've been in the entrepreneurial space and different relationships that have been developing. It helped me to kind of point to a few that actually, are worth as much as I thought they were. And I do have one friend who, he's helped me pitch to investors some of our projects. And the other day he told me he had created a shrine of my work at his house. So he's purchased my books and stuff. And again, just like you were saying, that created this high benchmark that suddenly I had so much more to live up to. And that really resonates. It's really cool that you've been able to find a partner like that can not only push you creatively, but also help with the financials and help you achieve the goals that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I think that any sort of leadership role is really about kind of identifying your strengths and weaknesses and being able to balance those out through relationships that you build, and making it so that, failure becomes less and less of an option in a way. And I think that, it takes time to understand where your strengths and weaknesses are. And I think that's what is really incredible about the community that we have, is that there's a vulnerability there in which, you have to admit, oh my gosh, I'm really not good at this. We need help. And I think, leadership, one of our producers and our head of development and production, Megan Bartel, she was the producer on one of the producers on Dam Keeper. She said this thing about leadership, that leadership is really all about asking for help. And I really, knowing when and where and how to ask for help. And I really do believe that. And I think that, we've, in a way, as far as my growth, I think that's what, over the last 5 years, it's been learning more and more how and when and where to really ask for help. And I've just been really fortunate to be surrounded by really great people who have been able to help.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so on a different topic.
Yeah.
This is one of those big questions we mentioned before, the Livecast. So, what can a director and a producer and a company do to make this industry a better place to work? Or a better place in general?
Yeah, I think it's really simple. There are certain undeniable requirements to make content for our industry, and some of those things are you could look at as really resources, people, machines, equipment, money, absolutely. Out of all those things, they all play a sort of an important role, but I do believe in the development of people. I think that before I entered the animation industry professionally, when I was a student, you read it, but you talked about Joe and Joe, and you talk about, in animation, there's the 9 Old Men. There's incredible legends and that are out there in the industry, like Tony Fucilli and Glenn Keane, and just really powerhouses in animation. And my impression of animation was always that it was going to be almost like an apprenticeship, like in the old, I don't know, when I say old days, I don't know what time frame I'm referring to, but it's like if you were going to take on the family trade and you were going to put together shoes, you would learn step by step every element of what it meant to make shoes from being an apprentice and learning a trade. And I always thought animation was going to be like that. And I don't, I think the best moments for me have very much been like that. And I think that, but I don't think it was quite what I pictured, and it wasn't quite the entirety of necessarily what I needed either. And
I can completely relate to that. Yeah, there were certain times that I was like, if you would just take a chance here, just bring me in, you will see how hard I'm going to work and how, and I've heard that from several other artists, so that really resonates.
Yeah, I think also there was a bit of naivete with that, of thinking that someone will come and show me the ropes.
Right.
Like, this kind of trade and understanding of what it takes to tell a story visually will sort of naturally, that will be provided, and this is the way animation and the industry will work. And I don't think that's the way life works, right?
No.
It's sort of like you've got to take a little bit of risk, and you've got to have a vision. I mean, have an idea of what, for yourself, for other people, have an idea, and truthfully put that idea out there so that people can either rally behind it or, in truth, not even pay attention to it. And I think that for me, the contribution I hope that people, directors and producers, continue to make in the industry is a consciousness in both ways. One, kind of the mentorship that experience can provide. Our studio overall really believes in education. We build education programs through our films with San Francisco Film Society around the Dam Keeper. We build education programs coming up with, in our Korean exhibition, we have art programs. We've worked with partners like Schoolism to try to pass on some of the little bit of information Dice and I have collected over our time in the industry as far as the craft of painting. And
I didn't even mention that course. That course is amazing. I took that class. Thorough notes. It's a brilliant way to teach painting.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So, we really do believe in education. We often, as much as we can, take on interns at Tonko House. But, on the flip side, too, I think, for directors and producers to always be in a moment of understanding the power they have as far as their ability to inspire.
Oh, yeah.
On the flip side, I think always to remember that we're all just students who, are all sort of on a shared path where the more we share, the more transparent we are, the more as an industry we will grow and influence not just our industry, but, hopefully the entirety of, and this sounds very lofty, Scott, so forgive me, but the world. I think that animation is a powerful, powerful tool. Film is a powerful tool. And, I think in this sort of partisan world, one thing I can say is stories are something that truly can bring people together. And I just have always loved the film and theater because if you ever really said out loud the idea of what a theater is, strangers who don't know each other from different walks of life voluntarily, as a matter of fact, spending money to go sit next to strangers and turn the lights off, to be able to have one shared experience of watching a story and characters that they can empathize with, to go on a journey, to gain perspective that they may not have prior to that, is still something I think is magical, and something that I still really think when it comes from an honest and sincere place in terms of how we work, why we work, and what to achieve and what we hope to share, when there's a consistency there, I think that genuinely there's an opportunity to affect greater groups of outside of our industry. And I think that ultimately drives our industry.
That's awesome. Sorry for my smile. My poster in the background just fell over. I think it's interesting that you pointed out that that's lofty to say that you want to change the world. And, you know, that completely resonates with me. And I think that I don't think that my stories are going to stop World War whatever, right? But perhaps they'll inspire somebody who might be a soldier in that war to act better, or perhaps it might inspire somebody to make better decisions for their family, and how they can have better relationships with other people. And I think that the more stories we tell of that sort, the more we have ability to impact. And so, even if you might not change every single person, all the billions of people in the entire world, if you change, if you help 50, if you help 10, if you help 1, that's quite an achievement.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure you've had this experience, and it's cool when you put content out there where somebody comes to you and they tell you what a big difference their content made for you, and you see that it made a genuine impact. That's quite a reward.
Yeah, I think, the honest sort of feeling of sharing content for us at Tonko House is really trying to start a conversation. I think that, a film like The Dam Keeper, I think it's best to try to start a conversation. I don't think it's sort of a film that provides answers to a whole lot of things, but
right.
It does sort of kind of point to bullying. It does point to environmental situations, but I don't think it's trying to solve it in many ways. I think that at the studio, one of the big missions we have, one of our mission overall, is to really inspire curiosity. And I think that's the part of this sort of world that we live in, that I hope that we could just be a little more curious. I think that will help to sort of, I do hope that I actually would not be doing this if I did not think that on some level I believed we could affect the world. Not just a small group of people, but that all of us have the ability to kind of change things. And I think the big thing is really trying to find a way to inspire a level of curiosity where, in truth, people are able to ask questions when they're trying to assert their view.
I agree.
Really beautiful.
Well, there's some stories out there. So we're already into our last segment, the Get Wiser moment. You segued into it naturally because obviously you do think that a filmmaker does have a moral responsibility to the culture of the world, which is the last question I ask. What is it, if there is any responsibility that a filmmaker has? And yeah, I'm totally there with you. We absolutely do have a responsibility. And films like The Dam Keeper get a conversation started. But there are films out there that perhaps are more like propaganda. So they're like, I'm going to prove my point. And the whole story, they're proving their point. And sometimes, those they feel like propaganda.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, we really strive to try to balance entertainment and awareness. I think entertainment, we've all watched those films. I think that they're like a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Popcorn flick that, again, has its place in the world and is very important. And, we watch that. You go in for 2 hours, you come out, you forget about the film, but
that's fun.
You were entertained.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I think we do care about awareness, but, there's a lot of public service announcements out there that you've watched that you're like, yeah, I know this is important for me to watch, but I don't care. And,
yeah.
So I think if we can find ways to, at Tonko House, we're trying to find ways to kind of balance those two things. Of course, I think it's always a filmmaker's job to entertain, captivate their audience.
Absolutely.
It's an opportunity to raise awareness. And again, I don't think that's about saying right from wrong. I think it's just raising awareness for the world that we're all sharing in a way.
Oh yeah. Well, there's hardly anything as entertaining to me. Personally, I might be a weirdo, but there's hardly anything as entertaining as meeting somebody and actually really getting to know them, asking them really good questions and really understanding their view of the world and how it's different than mine and how it's similar to mine and and all that stuff. And I think when films do that, they do a really good job. They're searching for the truth. And I think that's the best kind of film, is the film that's and a story that's searching for the truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, great. Well, let me see if I have anything else to ask you. So, okay, here's some good. This is a little selfish, so all my viewers can tune out. But if you were in my position, what would you do next on your road to becoming a filmmaker, like a feature filmmaker? Because I've done shorts, but
I don't think this is. I don't necessarily have advice for, like, per se, your unique position, given that, Scott, I mean, I know I've been following what you're up to, but I don't know, kind of the nuance of where you are. I will say that there's a little bit of things that have helped me along the way. Both Dice and I talk about this story. I think it was in a Malcolm Gladwell book. But there's a story that is about a ceramics class. And the ceramics,
yes.
Yeah.
I know this one, but please tell it. It's great.
Yeah, the ceramics class is sort of divided into two sides, two ways to get an A. One is really, hey, you don't have to make a lot of pots. You just have to make one if you want, but try to make it the most beautiful, perfect pot you possibly can. So you can get an A that way. Or the other way, the other half of the class, it's all about quantity. So doesn't matter, good or bad, does not matter. Just make as many pots as possible.
Yeah.
And in Malcolm Gladwell's book, he talks about how actually quantity and quality actually sat with the same exact person. So the person who did the highest quantity actually produced the highest quality pot.
Yeah.
And I think I believe in that. I believe in
me too.
The mileage and the relentless pursuit of sort of continuing on a path in which.
Oh, right when he's saying the best stuff, he pauses. He'll be back.
I don't know where it cut out, but man, that was the most brilliant thing I've ever seen.
I know, and we lost it. I can't tell you, though, how many times a year I tell that story. I'm sure it's at least once every 2 months, if not once a month, where I tell that story because it's so encouraging to me. Because I know that just crank away at, and try these different ideas. And I've seen it happen. Like, they all continually get better. And my favorite one is the one that I'm working on currently, and that's good news. And I also find myself diving deeper.
Yeah.
And having these conversations. I had one of those vulnerable kinds of conversations yesterday with this lady who, she writes people's histories. She helps them write their family history or their personal history. And it's amazing the insights that she can bring to my story when we have conversations, and it gets really it's not just about the story. It gets vulnerable for the two of us talking about it and how hard it is to know what our identity is or whatnot. And yeah, that's awesome. I love that story. I actually heard that from Pete Docter, I think.
Oh, cool.
It was in an animation mentor lecture that he had given. So.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think, a lot of people have to just figure out what pots are they throwing,
Yeah.
Like, what is the thing? I think that's a constant question of, what part, as specific as you can be, I think, like, figuring out what that is and just going is important overall. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, in other words, like, figure out what you want to do and just do it.
All right.
It's easy, but yeah.
Will do. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Where can people find you? Where should they connect with you?
I'm sorry, Scott, can you say that again?
Where can people find you? Where should they connect with you?
Yeah, we have our Instagram on Tonko House, and then, Dice's Twitter. We also are on Twitter and Facebook, and a lot of our activities and things that are going on are sort of there overall. And again, I think our community, the community around Tonko House has been incredible, whether it's, kind of our peers or people even from outside of our industry. So follow us there, Tonko House.
Oh, and check out the Tonko Cast. It's awesome.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a wonderful show. So, and you know where to find me. It's down in the show notes, and I'll put Robert's stuff down in the show notes as well. So until next time, enjoy.
Awesome.
You have been watching the Directing Animation Livecast, hosted by Scott Weiser, produced by Lauren Shaken, copyright Scott Weiser LLC 2019.